Hi, I'm going to be reading 1 Kings 18. After a long time, in the 3rd year, the word of the Lord came to Elijah. Go and present yourself to Ahab, and I will send rain on the land. So Elijah went to present himself to Ahab. Now the famine was severe in Samaria, and Ahab had summoned Obadiah, his palace administrator. Obadiah was a devout believer in the Lord. While Jezebel was killing off the Lord's prophets, Obadiah had taken 100 prophets and hidden them in 2 caves, 50 in each, and had supplied them with food and water. Ahab had said to Obadiah, "Go through the land to all the springs and valleys. Maybe we can find some grass to keep the horses and mules alive, so we will not have to kill any of our animals." So they divided the land they were to cover, Ahab going in one direction and Obadiah in the other. As Obadiah was walking along, Elijah met him. Obadiah recognized him, bowed down to the ground, and said, "Is it really you, my lord Elijah?" "Yes," he replied. "Go tell your master, Elijah is here." "What have I done wrong?" asked Obadiah, "that you are handing your servant over to Ahab to be put to death? As surely as the Lord your God lives, there is not a nation or kingdom where my master has not sent someone to look for you. And whenever a nation or kingdom claimed you were not there, he made them swear they could not find you. But now you tell me to go to my master and say, 'Elijah is here.' I don't know where the Spirit of the Lord may carry you when I leave you. If I go and tell Ahab and he doesn't find you, he will kill me. Yet I, your servant, have worshipped the Lord since my youth. Haven't you heard, my lord, what I did while Jezebel was killing the prophets of the Lord? I hid 100 of the Lord's prophets in 2 caves, 50 in each, and supplied them with food and water. And now you tell me to go to my master and say, 'Elijah is here.' He will kill me." Elijah said, "As the Lord Almighty lives, whom I serve, I will surely present myself to Ahab today." So Obadiah went to meet Ahab and told him, and Ahab went to meet Elijah. When he saw Elijah, he said to him, "Is that you, you troubler of Israel?" "I have not made trouble for Israel," Elijah replied, "but you and your father's family have. You have abandoned the Lord's commands and have followed the Baals. Now summon the people from all over Israel and meet me on Mount Carmel. And bring the 450 prophets of Baal and the 400 prophets of Asherah who eat at Jezebel's table." So Ahab sent word throughout all Israel and assembled the prophets on Mount Carmel. Elijah went before the people and said, "How long will you waver between 2 opinions? If the Lord is God, follow him, but if Baal is God, follow him." But the people said nothing. Then Elijah said to them, "I am the only one of the Lord's prophets left, but Baal has 450 prophets. Get 2 bulls for us. Let Baal's prophets choose one for themselves, and let them cut it into pieces and put it on the wood, but not set fire to it. I will prepare the other bull and put it on the wood, but not set fire to it. Then you call in the name of your God, and I will call in the name of the Lord, the God who answers by fire. He is God." Then all the people said, "What you say is good." Elijah said to the prophets of Baal, "Choose one of the bulls and prepare it first, since there are so many of you. Call in the name of your God, but do not light the fire." So they took the bull given them and prepared it. Then they called on the name of Baal from morning till noon. "Baal, answer us," they shouted, but there was no response. No one answered. And they danced around the altar they had made. At noon, Elijah began to taunt them. "Shout louder," he said. "Surely he is a god. Perhaps he is deep in thought, or busy, or traveling. Maybe he is sleeping and must be awakened." So they shouted louder and slashed themselves with swords and spears, as was their custom, until their blood flowed. Midday passed, and they continued their frantic prophesying until the time for the evening sacrifice. But there was no response. No one answered. No one paid attention. Then Elijah said to all the people, "Come here to me." They came to him, and he repaired the altar of the Lord, which had been torn down. Elijah took 12 stones, one for each of the tribes descended from Jacob, to whom the word of the Lord had come, saying, "Your name shall be Israel." With the stones he built an altar in the name of the Lord, and he dug a trench around it large enough to hold 2 seahs of seed. He arranged the wood, cut the bull into pieces, and laid it on the wood. Then he said to them, "Fill 4 large jars with water and pour it on the offering and on the wood." "Do it again," he said, and they did it again. "Do it a 3rd time," he ordered, and they did it the 3rd time. The water ran down around the altar and even filled the trench. At the time of the sacrifice, the prophet Elijah stepped forward and prayed, "Lord, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, let it be known today that you are God in Israel and that I am your servant and have done all these things at your command. Answer me, Lord, answer me, so these people will know that you, Lord, are God and that you are turning their hearts back again." Then the fire of the Lord fell and burned up the sacrifice, the wood, the stones, and the soil, and also licked up the water in the trench. When all the people saw this, they fell prostrate and cried, "The Lord, He is God! The Lord, He is God!" Then Elijah commanded them, "Seize the prophets of Baal, don't let anyone get away." They seized them, and Elijah had them brought down to the Kishon Valley and slaughtered there. And Elijah said to Ahab, "Go, eat and drink, for there is the sound of a heavy rain." So Ahab went off to eat and drink, but Elijah climbed to the top of Carmel, bent down to the ground, and put his face between his knees. "Go and look toward the sea," he told his servant, and he went up and looked. "There is nothing there," he said. 7 times Elijah said, "Go back." The 7th time the servant reported, "A cloud as small as a man's hand is rising from the sea." So Elijah said, "Go and tell Ahab, hitch up your chariot and go down before the rain stops you." Meanwhile, the sky grew black with clouds, the wind rose, a heavy rain started falling, and Ahab rode off to Jezreel. The power of the Lord came on Elijah, and, tucking his cloak into his belt, he ran ahead of Ahab all the way to Jezreel.
Thank you for that. That was excellent. We're now in 1 Kings 18, and this is one of the most powerful and wonderful chapters of the Bible. This is where God once again shows himself to be all-powerful over everything. If you like, it's a bit of a mirror of what we found out with the plagues in Egypt. God is going to produce the goods again. Now, we mentioned that the last time that the kingdom had divided. We're looking at the northern kingdom now. And the northern kingdom was just full of idols. And one of the things that goes through the whole Bible, there is a power in idols. You know, we fool ourselves if we don't think that things have power over us. And the whole land was full of these idols, Ashtoreth poles. If you like, it was their equivalent of having pornography everywhere. Because these Ashtoreth poles would have had prostitutes everywhere. And it's everywhere you look, there would be that sort of temptation. Anyway, so there's a really evil king called Ahab, who's wickeder than most, and he has his wife Jezebel, and they basically persecute the believers out of the northern kingdom. And as a result, Elijah, the main prophet, goes there, tells them there's going to be a drought. He goes away, and there's a drought. For 3 years, there's a drought. And again, we want to realise that God often is in charge of the weather. You know, this needs to be remembered. That just as Jesus calmed the storm on the lake, he's in charge of the weather. And as a result, it gets to the point when the country is desperate. So the people that have been following Baal are desperate. They're hungry. They're starving. And at that point, God sends Elijah back to Ahab and proposes that they sort this one out. That actually they go to Mount Carmel, and they're going to see if God is greater or the prophets of Baal. And so 250, the prophets of Baal, which Jezebel brought with her, they go up to Mount Carmel. Elijah goes up to Mount Carmel. They have a straight contest, which God's going to produce the goods. Elijah sets it so that they can't do it themselves. There has to be fire falling from above. He demonstrates that the powerlessness of the prophets of Baal. He even mocks them when he suggests that Baal's probably having a relieving himself, perhaps the nicest way of putting it. And then he makes it harder. You can read this. That he makes it harder. That he pours water on the sacrifice, and so and a trench around it with water. And God comes down and he burns up the water and he burns up the sacrifice. So then the people believe. And sometimes, just like the crossing of the Red Sea, the people need to see God in action, to fear him. And then after that, and this is what the Bible says, and we can't run away from it. After that, he actually commanded the people to kill the prophets of Baal. And so the prophets of Baal were killed in the land. So that, if you like, and the children of Israel were saved from the prophets of Baal. And after that happened, he sends his servant up there, and there's still been no rain, and then there's a small cloud, and his servant sees a small cloud. But like a lot of small things, in faith, he sends his servant up again, and then it's slightly bigger, the size of a hand, and then the rains come, and God demonstrates that when evil is turned away, when the evil in our land is turned away, that he restores the land. That there is a connection between a people that follow God, a people that seek His way, and the prosperity in terms of in the weather. So when you look for signs, do look for that. We have a God who hates evil, and we have a God who uses things in order to cleanse His people and nations in this world. Thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you'll be able to come again tomorrow.